Folks, welcome to another exciting installment of the only podcast about 80s and 90s action movies in the known universe. It is, of course, Going Commando, back with you here again. My name is Bryne Yancey. This is episode number 7. With me, as always, is my co-host, who is a maniac who shouldn't have a badge or a number, James McDonald. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, folks. How are you?
I'm fine.
Excellent.
The world is ending, but I feel like I could say that every day.
Man.
But I'm here. I'm alive. I'm kicking. We're recording the pod. So what could be better? No better way to spend the night.
That's right, man. I agree. It's funny you mentioned that. I saw a post today. I don't know if it's real or not. I didn't bother to look it up, but it was a picture of Mike Rowe, and he had like a glass of scotch and was like toasting. And then the tagline said, like, well, that was fun. Here's the 2022, everybody. Oh, God.
2021 is really starting out to be quite a dirty job, as it were.
You know, here's the thing. I'm gonna try to stick up for 2021 for just a second since it just started. I don't really know what we expected. You know, it's not like you could come off the end of such a shit show like 2020 was and have things be, you know, rainbows and unicorn farts and all that good shit. We should have known, like, we were going to go through some crap for a while. I mean, what did we really expect?
I totally agree, and I think that what is so infuriating about that is that so many people have been playing dumb about it and have been on their pedestals saying that, America is better than this. You know, we're not some banana republic. We're different. We're better. And no one could have anticipated this. No one could have seen this coming. And it's like, where the fuck have you been for the last 4 years?
Yeah, I'll agree with that sentiment. Like, I believe that at one time, we as a country, we were definitely more civilized than we are now. I mean, there was riots and stuff like that, but like, you didn't see people like going in the Capitol building and like stealing furniture and shit. You know, like we were just slightly above that for sure. In the last 4 years, we've just kind of descended into this
a little bit
weird twilight zone of existence that 4 years down and I still don't quite get it. Don't quite, comprehend everything. Like, I don't understand how we got here.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think that's a conversation that, a lot of people have been kind of reckoning with for a while now, and there's no clear answer, I don't think. I'm certainly not smart enough. I'm very stupid, so I'm not smart enough to answer that question. But it's bad. It's all bad. All I know how to do is talk about action movies.
Agreed. And we do that well, so what's the tagline?
Before we get into that,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we're the best at what we do. And it's just really stupid shit.
Hey, speaking of really stupid shit, let's talk about social media.
Okay, let's
our dear leader's favorite platform of choice. Twitter, you can follow us there, Going Commando Pod. We're on Instagram as well, Going Commando Pod. And Gmail, goingcommandopod@gmail.com if you want to send us an email. Yeah, it's been a week, and it's been a weird day. I went to the dentist this morning for the first time in well over 10 years.
Ooh, okay.
And I just about had a panic attack on the way there, riding my bike, and when I was in the chair also. Just thinking about it, I haven't thought about it all day until just now, but just thinking about it now, I'm starting to get like a little, those nerves are starting to come back a little bit. That's how traumatic my childhood experience as a dentist have been. Today was not that. It was much smoother, but it's crazy how things like that can stay with you for such a long time, and then they kind of stay bottled up because you don't really confront them, and then suddenly one day you're in the chair getting your teeth x-rayed and you can't breathe and you're about to gag and you're just trying to stare at the window or stare at the ceiling, and they're telling you to breathe through your nose, but you suddenly forget how to do that for some reason. And it's really nerve-wracking, but I'm okay. I survived.
Man, now that you mention it, I haven't been to the dentist in, I don't know that it's quite been 10 years, but it's been a long time since I've been to the dentist.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, and the thing is like, I could have gone. I have dental insurance. I've not had a job where I didn't have dental insurance since, well, I don't know, I guess since I got out of high school. So why I didn't
Yeah.
go, I don't really know. And then 2020 rolled around. I was like, I'm going to, before the pandemic started, I was like, I think I'm going to use my dental this year, and I'm going to go to the dentist and get a checkup and get a cleaning, find out if I got any cavities. And then, like, in March, they were like, yeah, you probably shouldn't go to the dentist unless it's an absolute emergency. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, okay then. I guess there goes that idea. So, why did you have to go? Just
It's not a very interesting story. I don't really have. I mean, obviously, not having gone for over 10 years, I have various mouth problems. I'm not in any pain, which I'm thankful for. But my lovely wife kind of like, very, very gently coerced me into going. And I think it's only because she went recently and just suggested that I go. So I thought, okay, sure, I'll go. And, they were really nice. They didn't judge me for not having been to a dentist. They totally understood. Yeah, I just went to get some x-rays and, kind of see what's what down there. And down there, right here, not down there. Everything down there is fine, as far as I know. But up here. Yeah, so now I have about $7,500 worth of work that needs to be done, apparently. Which is another reason why I waited so long to go to the dentist, because I knew the news would be something along those lines. And there it was.
wow.
So got to figure that out. Indeed.
That's pretty crazy, man. What are they doing? If you don't mind me asking, or what do they want to do? I should say.
So I have. So I got like a bunch of metal fillings when I was a kid, that are now like they're like not in bad shape. Again, I don't have any pain or anything like that. I have no problems eating or chewing, but at this point they're kind of eroded. They're 25 years old at this point, maybe more. So they want to replace all of those with like a resin that will apparently last longer than the metal that I got back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I have like a really, really deep cavity in like a back left tooth that needs to be fixed. The cavity is so deep that it's very close to my nerve. So that's kind of like the most urgent thing, I guess, is that based on what they tell me, any day now I could wake up in just writhing pain. So there's that. What else? I have some really bad like plaque buildup on my bottom row that needs to get cleaned out. There was a bunch of other shit that I forgot, but it was, it's quite a bit.
Wow, man. You and I are probably likely in the same boat. Like, I haven't had any pain either, but occasionally, like if I eat the wrong thing, like if I eat something that's really, really sweet, I'll have a little bit of pain on this back right side of my jaw. And it's like it's like real brief, like literally only there long enough for me to notice it's a thing, and then it's gone. But I'm like, any day now. Any day now. Something happen. Yeah. Which is why.
I mean, I guess that's part of. I didn't make this New Year's resolution, but I was kind of telling the nurse giving me my X-rays this morning that I've only ever gone to the dentist as like a reactive measure, right? And I think a lot of people who are poor, economically challenged, don't have dental insurance or don't have good dental insurance, if that even exists, kind of do the same thing. Like, they don't visit the dentist unless they are in extreme writhing pain, or have something that needs to be taken care of like right away. Right. So I'm trying to be more proactive versus being reactive. Especially, obviously I'm not old yet, but I'm getting older. So it's, it's like about that time where, you got to start thinking about shit like this, because it'll jump up and bite you before you know it.
Yeah. And, I mean, you don't want to be, in your 40s and having to go get like a bunch of teeth yanked out and have like a bridge put in, or, like implants or something. Although I think implants are cool as shit. If, my teeth ever go bad and I can afford it, implants are the way to go, I think.
No, dude. My mom got implants last year, like all the way around, like front and bottom, and they look awesome. It's like a night and day difference. I'm super jealous, actually, because I'm really self-conscious about my teeth. And I was like like I'm ready. I'm like 36, and like my teeth are like, they are what they are, but they still work. They're not falling out. But I'm like ready to like get it over with. Let's get the show on the road. Pull them all out. Give me the nice like shiny even ones, and I'll be a new man. I'll be like a 9 instead of a 6. I think.
Yeah, I can see that, man. I can see that. I don't know that it'll bump you from a 6 to a 9, but definitely
okay. Well,
a really high 7 or a low 8.
Yeah, go ahead. Give me your ruling. Let's talk about this. Really high 7, low 8. I'll take that. I'll take that.
I mean, I feel like if I got it done, it would bump me
fine.
from like a really low 2 to at least a 3. No, man, I
don't be so hard on yourself, man. We're doing self-love in 2021. Self-love only. No, none of this self-deprecating bullshit. I know I said that I was stupid like 5 minutes ago, but I take it back.
You're a very intelligent man, sir. What I was about to say though is I know somebody who just went and got like 6 teeth, I think, on the bottom front pulled, and their gums were receding some, so they don't have enough bone and gum line in there to do the implants. So the only option they have is to do a bridge. And I'm just like, oh god, dude. Like, I saw like the picture they posted after when they had this temporary bridge in, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oof. I'm just like cringing a little bit because I'm like, that looks like it hurt.
Yeah. I mean, this shit's never pleasant, but my dentist did tell me that they do a very specific type of sedation dentistry for patients like me who are a little anxious about dental procedures, that I basically have the choice of being like awake and aware or being asleep and unaware. And in my mind, there's no choice. There is only one choice.
You want to be out.
So, yeah, like, why would I want to be awake for that? That's horrifying.
I get it. You know what's funny is that I was terrified of a dentist too growing up as a kid. And I think but before I was in like, I don't know, probably before I was 20 or 21, I'd only been to a dentist maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
So I remember when I went to the dentist and I had to get a root canal, and I was terrified because I always heard people like, oh, root canals, you don't want to do root canals, they're awful. So I told my dentist, I'm like, I'm really nervous. So she writes a script for Valium. So about 45 minutes before I go there, I take a Valium and I get like somebody takes me up there. She gives me the shot and everything, and they're going to town doing the root canal. And I'm just sitting there with my headphones on. I'm like, it isn't so bad. Why are you complaining? And like, it didn't bother me at all. The only time it ever actually hurt any at all. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you know what a root canal is. They go up there and they actually pull the root out. So they're doing it.
Yes.
And about halfway through, the dentist had to get up and go do something for 10 minutes. Like some kind of emergency came in. So she had to go look at this emergency. So I'm just sitting there like, She comes back and it's starting to wear off, like the numbing agent. So she goes in there and she pushes a little drill in there, and I immediately feel like, I don't even know how to describe it. It kind of reminds me of like pain, but like static on a television. It's just like everywhere all of a sudden. And I'm like, And she's like, oh, did you feel that? I'm like, She's like, hold on. She takes a little syringe up in there, and she goes, I'll be back in a minute. And when she came back, like the side of my face is like, she's like, yeah, you're ready.
Just drooping down. Yeah. Yep. You've got the telltale sign.
So, but honestly, it wasn't that bad. Now I know that like some of the things are worse. Like when like the implants, like if they were going to do the implants, put me the fuck out. I don't want to be awake for that.
Yes.
I don't
100%.
I don't want nothing to do with that. But like pulling teeth and stuff, not so bad. Funny story, and then we can get back on topic a little bit. I had a boss when I was working at Sports Authority back in the day, and I remember I had 2 teeth pulled over here, and I that night I swallowed a bunch of blood and stuff. I was sick, so I called out of work. And the next day I came in, and he's like, "The fuck is your problem?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You called out of work because you had some teeth pulled?" I was like, "Dude, I swallowed a bunch of blood. I spent like my whole morning throwing up." He's like, "You pussy, I don't even get Novocaine when I have teeth pulled." I was like, what in the fuck is your problem, dude? Who the fuck are you? He's like,
Yeah.
messes with me. I can't.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't do stuff, so I just let him pull it and give me some, Tylenol on my way home. I'm like, dude, you are either full of shit or a masochist, one of the two, and I don't know which.
Yeah, like, what is this, a fucking contest? Like, I don't understand. Like,
we're not in the pain Olympics,
I'm
bro.
extreme.
You don't have to make out this when we're in.
No.
Fuck.
No. Thank God we're not in the pain Olympics. That's some horrible shit. Speaking of horrible shit, or maybe not, apparently you had some kind of procedure as well.
Oh yeah, man.
That you were telling me about out there.
Yeah. So for the audience out there, we were supposed to record this last night, but we both had some things, which was kind of nice. I didn't feel like I was the only one that was kind of like derailing our plans. But so the last podcast we were talking about the stomach issues and everything. I had to go do what they call a barium swallow test.
Oh, yes.
Are you familiar?
I remember us talking about it on the last pod. So, yeah.
For those who out there who are listening who aren't familiar, they give you this cup of this liquid called barium. And I'm a nurse. I'm not a image specialist or anything. I don't really have a clue what barium is. I know that it shows up really well on the imaging, so that's why they use it. But it's really chalky, and they mix it to different consistencies. So what they do is they have this really cool x-ray machine, which I've never seen before. It allows them, like, as I'm sitting here, like, looking straight ahead, I can take a sip of the water, and in real time, they can see what's going on all the way from, like, my, mouth down to, like, I don't know, above my nipple line. So, like, basically the entire esophagus. So they do a series of pictures with the liquid with different consistencies, really like water, thicker liquid, and then like thick milkshake consistency. And then they had me swallow barium pills, and they videoed that. And honestly, I felt fine when I left. They were like, just drink a bunch of extra water, and you should be okay. So I went home. I had some breakfast because they have it done early in the morning. I mean, I was there at like 8 a.m., which is not early by any means, but for me, like, I had to take Danny to work, so I was up at 4:30 in the morning. So I get home, I'm eating breakfast, I'm trying to drink a bunch of water. My plan was actually, like, I was going to go into work. I had called out, but my plan was I was going to just go in there and, like, send my boss a message and say, hey, I can work, go ahead and put me back in. And by the time I got done with breakfast, I just felt really nauseous and weird. And I spent the better part of the next 3 or 4 hours. I didn't throw up, but, like, I got a mad case of the shits.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, shit.
And I'm certain it had to be the barium, because that's the only thing I'd had, because you can't have anything after midnight the night before. So I hadn't had anything to eat since, like, 7 o'clock that night before. So the only thing in my stomach was this barium. So it had to be what was doing it. And she told me, she's like, your poop will probably look white. That's normal. Don't be afraid. So, like, the last bit of it last night was like, okay, audience, skip ahead to whatever timestamp Bryne tells you if you're squeamish. It literally looked like brown tinted vanilla milkshake coming out. It was just
all right, delicious,
gross, so gross. But by the time you texted me and said you had stuff going on, I was literally sitting on a couch drinking water, and I looked at your phone. I looked at my phone and your text, and I was like, oh, thank God. Because I was just exhausted.
Oh, we could have had our first potty accident live on the air.
Oh man.
Well, not live, but
it was rough. And I haven't had diarrhea like that in a while. Probably like last time I had diarrhea like that was like 2019 when I got norovirus from one of my patients. Let me tell you. Yeah. You hear those stories about how they shut cruise ships the fuck down when somebody gets norovirus? That is no joke. Oh my God.
I bet.
Dude, I got norovirus about 3 days in. I thought I was going to die. I called my doctor and I was like, I don't know, doc. I don't know how much longer I can make this. He's like, I can hear him on the phone. He was like, I'll call you in a script for something else. I was like, okay. and I don't remember what he called a script in for, but like he gave me something, and immediately like everything stopped. But that was a miracle, because literally I had diarrhea with noro, like no joke, for like 6 days.
Wow.
I thought I was gonna die. I couldn't drink enough water.
Yeah, no human should be able to survive that.
Dude, I bought like 20 bottles of Pedialyte and Gatorade and water, and I'm like making cocktails of like a little bit of lemon lime Gatorade, some Pedialyte, a little bit of Sprite, some water, and I must have drank, I don't know, at least 1.5 gallons or 2 gallons of liquid a day for 6 days, and I still felt dehydrated.
That's crazy.
It's constant. It's awful.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm feeling a lot better today. No issues today. Like, it immediately seemed to stop. This morning I got up and I went to the bathroom. I was like, oh, here it comes. And it came out solid. And I was like, oh, whew, okay.
Nice and solid. I think that's like either like a 3 or a 4 on the Bristol stool chart. Something like that.
Something like that. I don't know. I don't pay any attention to the stool chart. But let me tell you, man.
I don't know if a vanilla milkshake or vanilla chocolate milkshake is on the stool chart. I'll have to look at it, but
look it up and you let me know.
We can confirm later on in the show.
I can tell you for a fact though, if you ever have it like that, man, go get some like Metamucil or something. I was mixing up, like they tell you can see this water bottle I got. They're like, yeah, mix that much water with 2 tablespoons of Metamucil. I mixed like that much water with like 1/4 cup of Metamucil, and I drank
just like a Metamucil slurry.
Dude, like I literally like just drink. Ugh. Okay, and then like feel all bloated and stuff. I'm like, all right, this will be okay. But this morning, everything came out, worked just fine. I was like, all right, good old Metamucil to the rescue.
Metamucil is not a sponsor of this podcast. Let me reiterate that. But if they want to be, go on commandopod@gmail.com. Hit me up.
But Metamucil, hit us up. Hit us up if you want some shout outs, because I'll hook you up. Good deal.
Yeah, very, very low rates.
Very low rates.
Speaking of things that might be low rated in the eyes of some, James.
Yes.
What movie are we talking about on this episode?
Well, sir, this episode we are talking about Steven Seagal's very first movie, known as Above the Law, which came out in 1988. And really set a precedent for basically the architect of every movie he was going to make for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. We can stop the episode right now. I mean, have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks with something else.
See you later. Good night.
No, we're not going to do that. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it like that, but that really does put it into perspective. Now, but speaking of perspective, what is your personal history with this movie, Above the Law?
Man, I'll be honest. This movie I don't have as much personal history with. As far as a Seagal movie goes, I probably have more personal history with some of his later work, like Under Siege, or like his next movie after this was Hard to Kill, I think. I remember my dad rented that when I was a kid. I was probably like 5 or 6, and I remember watching it at home on our television, which was a tube TV.
Yes.
We're dating ourselves, kids. Some of you out there have no clue what the fuck a tube television is. And a VCR that, like instead of putting it in the front of the VCR, like it had the door that came up. One of those VCRs.
Oh yeah, I love those. Yeah, absolutely.
So personally, though, Above the Law, I don't think I ever actually watched until I was in my teens. And again, I say this every time, like a lot of movies that we'll probably talk about. It was on TBS, Movies for Guys Who Like Movies.
You want them? TBS has them. Movies for Guys Who Like Movies. One big, bad, in-your-face movie every Sunday night.
And I don't think I ever watched it from the front,
of course,
from like the beginning to end, ever, until I watched it a couple days ago.
All right. Well, we're in a similar boat. I also don't have really any history with this movie. It's just one of those weird things. Like to your point about having maybe a little bit more familiarity and history with his other movies, that I have very distinct memories of, being like 13 or 14, however old I was when I came out. And Under Siege 2, the second one, that's Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. Sorry, let me correct myself. That movie was on HBO like every fucking day.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I've seen that movie a bunch. But most of his other movies I have next to no recollection of.
Yeah.
So I kind of came into this one fresh too. And it's funny that you bring up being a kid and watching Hard to Kill, because when I was watching this movie, Above the Law, this afternoon, I thought, if I were a child, Steven Seagal would be my favorite action star, like by a mile.
Okay.
Because he's like kind of suave, and he's got a little bit of charisma, and he's funny, and he's very tall and like foreboding, and he does lots of cool like karate kung fu moves. And that's like kind of his thing. This is an R-rated movie, but Steven Seagal could have had a second career as like a kids movies career, I think.
Well, I mean, like, if you really want to watch something that's funny that he did, go back and watch. I don't remember what channel it was on, but he had that show that was on in like 2008, 2009. I think it was on for like 3 seasons, called Steven Seagal Lawman. That shit is.
Yeah, Steven Seagal Lawman.
That shit's hysterical. Dude, you want something to laugh at. Like, just go watch that, because it's weird. He's not from Louisiana. He doesn't have a Louisiana accent, a Cajun style accent, but depending on who he's talking to, his accent will change. Like if he's talking to, I'll give a scenario. Like he's sitting there and there's somebody like a real Cajun, black fisherman, and he's talking about somebody stole his something another. And Seagal will be like, well, really? He walked away with your one on hell? Oh, weird. Just like, and people look like, and then literally, like, he'd start talking like that, and you'd see the guy he was talking to look at him like blinking and just staring at him like, what the fuck? Is he fucking with me? Because apparently, like, it was real. Yeah. He is, or was at least, an auxiliary cop. And all the cases you saw were live. They were supposed to be legit, quotes. But, like, people would literally, they'd have, like, a real problem. And, like, I think the comedian Tom Segura said it best. He's like, somebody be like, calling because somebody shot at him. He'd be like, so yeah, that guy, he shot at me over here. Holy shit, that's Steven Seagal.
I haven't seen the show, but the scenario, the picture that you painted just makes me think of like watching that scene, watching him do that, and then there's like a talking head segment where he's talking to the camera about the case or whatever, and like I could just picture him saying something that he doesn't think is racist, but actually is, like something along the lines of like, oh, you gotta talk like these people, you gotta meet them where they are, you gotta speak their language, and that's how you get results.
You know what's funny? You say that, he would do that. He'd be talking to us like some black kid with like a do-rag on, and he'd walk up and be like, "What's up, brother? What's going on? Can you give me what's the skinny? What's going down?" And the dude would literally look at him like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" But like he thought it was just like legit. Like that's. I think at one time he did say, he's like, you gotta speak these people's language they understand. Like what? Like fucking English?
Yeah. Like, oh man, you do one album with Stevie Wonder, and then you just assume you're like the black guy whisperer, right?
Dude, you might have to go back and watch some of the show. Like, just go on like YouTube and see if you can type in like Steven Seagal Lawman highlights, and see if you can find like a compilation video and watch it. If it doesn't make you laugh, there's something wrong with you, because it's just hysterically funny. And what I found all like funny about it too is like they would put him. So this is like 2009, 2010. He wasn't probably in as bad a shape as he is now. And I got no room to talk. I'm a big fat guy.
Yeah.
But he's like in like, police uniform and everything, and he's sitting in the front seat. And because he's got the vest on and everything, he's kind of got to lean back, so he kind of looks like he's kind of perched precariously in the seat, And the guy, they always have him partnered with this young, jacked, athletic black dude. And the reason being is because, like, anytime that, like, somebody would run, that's that dude's job, like, to get out and run those people down. Like, Seagal was not getting out of the fucking car to run anybody down. Like, I literally, there was an episode, I remember this, like, they were going down an alley, and some dude they were looking for started running. The black guy parks the car, he goes, "You got this?" Seagal goes, looks over, and he goes, "Yeah." That's all he says, like, "Yeah." The dude gets out of the car, takes off running, and Seagal gets up, runs around the car, and he gets in the seat and starts driving the car. And he's like going down there, he's like, we're going to catch him in a second. And then the camera pans over, and you see this black dude running across a field chasing this guy. He's like, "I just jumped that fence. Let me see if we can get around and beat him over here." He, like, cuts around on the front side of the street. And, like, by the time, like, he's in a car. He's in a automobile. By the time he catches up with them in the car, they're like half a mile down the road or more. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, no wonder they put him with that young black dude. There's no fucking way he's running that guy down. No way.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's kind of reached the point, unfortunately, where I think that Steven Seagal is in worse shape than Will Sasso was while playing Steven Seagal on Mad TV.
Okay, hey. All right, in this shot, I'm going to use my magic to run up that wall and then jump up over the roof.
Okay, great. Hey, can we get those wires in here, please?
Whoa, hey. Who said anything about wires? I saw that Chinese movie like 4 times. I didn't see any wires.
Yeah, that's because they were digitally removed.
Oh, really? Well, maybe I should digitally remove your head from your body. Because people are paying good American money to see me fly.
That's very good.
Oh, what's that? Oh, you think I should? I don't know. He seems like a nice guy. What? Yeah. You know, he makes a good point. Making yourself fly is the hardest kind of acting there is. Because everybody on the set's got to believe in you. But there's always that one scumbag that doesn't believe it.
Oh, hands down. Hands down. What's funny about that is that Will Sasso is, like, he was in worse shape then than he is now. Like, I saw him on a podcast. He's in pretty good shape. He lost a bunch of weight. He trains. He lifts weights. He looks great. Steven Seagal, on the other hand,
good for him.
Looks like a pile of shit in a 6'4" bag. I'm sorry.
I mean, he's definitely shrank at this point.
Yeah, there's probably some Steven Seagal fans out there listening right now going like, "Oh, fuck this guy." But you know it's true. You know what I'm saying is true.
Yeah, okay. I mean, be that as it may. Is Steven Seagal a good guy? He's not. No. He's not a good guy. Is he an asshole? Probably. Does every person who has ever worked on a movie with him hate him? Yeah. Most likely. Yeah. But is Above the Law an enjoyable action film? My answer is yes.
Okay. All right. Let's go down that road. Let's unpack that.
Yeah.
So the movie starts out much like any other Steven Seagal movie, where he explains how much of a badass he is.
Yeah, there's a very overwrought voiceover that's like spliced with actual photos of him as a child.
Yes.
Which I found very funny. Way to set the tone right away.
Right, and he explains that, you know, he got so entranced of Aikido that, you know, he wanted to go. So by the time he was 18, he was on a plane to go to Japan and study and become a Aikido master. But then he's essentially kind of like recruited to go be a CIA operative in Vietnam.
Yes, and we see like the first shots that we see of him in this movie are a young Steven Seagal, and we only know that because he has very bad sideburns. That's like the identifier, right? And he's like teaching some kind of class, a martial arts class, mm-hmm. And it's just like very easily just like, you know, just like basically doing like a matador would, I guess, almost just like stepping aside and, you know, like decking these guys basically.
Yeah.
But continue.
Well, I mean, okay, just to get off topic a second, that's what Aikido is. It's kind of like judo. Like you use your opponent's momentum and their strike to throw them off balance and then hit them with some kind of.
Okay.
And he was a legit Aikido, master, I guess. He did go to Japan and train and, obtain a black belt, and he was training. He was one of the only Westerners, I think, at the time who was allowed to go over and train like that. So, I mean, that part of it, at least, is very legit, and I can respect that.
Sure.
But anyways, continuing on. So he gets recruited into the CIA, and you see how he really quickly gets disenfranchised with it. That's where we meet our villain.
Zagon?
Zagon, yes. Who is this old...
Mr. Zagon.
Mr. Zagon. Who's this old Italian guy, I believe, who's giving people drugs to try to get information out of them. You apparently,
Yeah.
I saw your report, or your notes, you apparently found him to be very terrifying and menacing.
I thought he was super scary, like right away. It's just like, I don't know what it is. Like something about like the way that his like face looks like triggers something deep within me.
Okay.
Like maybe it's like the cheek, but like he has like very, well-defined cheekbones. He's obviously like the way this movie is directed, he's like made to look a lot taller and like more foreboding than like anybody that he's interrogating. And he's got kind of this, this kind of like very like scary voice.
Right.
So I found him very convincing right off the bat.
I thought the character was pretty convincing, but later on, because, obviously I think that scene happened in like 72 or 73, and then we jump all the way to present day 1988. So to me, he didn't seem as terrifying in 1988. I get how he comes across as a little menacing and he just looks scary and back in the 70s. But in like New York City in the late 80s, to me, he just kind of looks like an old guy. The skinny old guy who apparently has a problem with heroin. I don't know, man. I'm trying to keep it together and be really, professional in this movie, but this movie just makes me laugh.
No, it's okay. No, it's a super funny movie. As far as like 80s action movies with like tons of unintentional comedy in it, this one's got to be up there. As far as like a mainstream movie that was like popular,
For sure. If Steven Seagal had been able to figure out how to act differently and play different characters, he might have been able to make a career out of making these occasional movies where he played this crazy badass guy, right? But he found like his bread and butter with that one movie, and then basically just took it, skeletonized it, and figured out a way to fit it into every script going from there on out. And it's like, you could watch a horse jump a fence, right? But once you've seen a horse jump a fence, it loses its mystique because you've seen it.
A little bit.
And then it's like, well, okay, he's going to do this thing. They're going to talk about how much of a badass he is, and then he's going to kick the shit out of that guy, and the movie's going to end. He's going to get the girl or what the fuck ever the payoff at the end is. And that's how the whole thing's going to go. So he's very much a formula actor. He has a formula and a niche that worked for him, and he just wrote it to death, I feel like.
Yeah.
And the older
and still is.
Yeah, he still is. And the older he gets, the more unbelievable it gets.
There's not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but I was just gonna say I wish I had the clip ready, but I saw on Twitter, it must have been a few months ago, like a clip from somebody I follow posted a clip of like one of his like more recent movies, and it's like a fight scene on a roof, and it's like very obvious that like other than like the scene where he has to be like standing up, like that Steven Seagal is like not like leaving like a chair by the set at any point. He just looks half asleep. He's got sunglasses on for the entire movie apparently. The scene is being shot in the dark, takes place at night. And and he's like, in a fight scene with this like much younger, much better in shape henchmen or whatever it is. I don't know what movie it was. I don't know what the plot is. Doesn't matter. But totally ridiculous and totally unbelievable, even for him.
Right. It's just weird. Like some action stars figured out that you can't play the same guy forever. You know, like Clint Eastwood's a good example of that. Clint Eastwood never had an issue with any of his movies. Like as he got older, he didn't want to be unbelievable. Like I remember,
Yeah.
well, we were talking about this the other night, Unforgiven, which we definitely need to do that at some point. And I'm not gonna get into too much of it, but like he shows like he's an older gunfighter. He doesn't have the aim anymore. His eyes aren't as good. He doesn't have the stamina. He has a hard time getting in on the damn horse. Like it's believable. But then you got somebody like Seagal who's like, yeah, I'm in my 70s, but I'm still gonna kick the shit out of all those 28-year-old guys right there.
Yeah.
He's like the Donald Trump of action stars.
Interesting. I like that comparison. Yeah, I think yeah, he's like, he's doing the movie and he says, like I know it might be hard to believe, but I support our senior citizens because believe it or not, I am also a senior citizen. And then he just like, takes some like prelim UFC fighter and like throws him off a roof or something,
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but yeah, I mean, getting back to the topic of the movie, I agree. I think the villain was he was menacing in the beginning, but then when they showed him in modern day New York, I was like, all right, this guy's not really all that menacing. And then they undo basically all this buildup of it trying to be a big deal with him like going against all these guys. They totally undo it in the last 5 minutes of the movie. So in the last 5 minutes of the movie, they have him in handcuffs on a table or a chair. Old man Heroin comes over and comes over.
Old man Heroin sounds like it sounds like a Simpsons character that appeared in like 1 or 2 episodes.
Or better yet for that, like Duff McKagan's next project.
Or that. Could be. Yeah.
So so old man Heroin comes up and gives him a shot, and he's acting all out of it like he can barely keep his eyes open. And then like he comes over, like I can't remember exactly what happened because I watched it like a week ago now. But essentially, like he gets up off this chair and quickly dispatches everybody in the room, like 7 guys, and then stumbles out.
Yeah, well, Zagon. Yeah, well, what happens is Zagon gives him the shot. He administers a shot, right? And then he's going to kill Nico, Steven Seagal's character. He's got a knife.
Oh, that's right. He had a knife.
He pulls the knife out, and then Nico just like breaks the zip ties somehow. He was playing possum, folks. Is the point we're getting at? And I have to say, cool scene. I mean, very unbelievable. But what I will say about it is that 2 things actually. One is that I thought it was very funny when Nico got to Zagon and like cracked his arm in such a way, like broke his arm in such a way that like his arm was like hanging backwards from his body. I thought that was really funny. That's like one way to get a guy away from his knife for sure. And then, just like broke his neck and dropped him.
Yeah.
And then stumbled into the ballroom.
Right. And then stumbles into the ballroom. But at that point though, it's all done. And that's one of the things about Seagal and his movies that I always hated. I mean, well, not when I was a kid, I thought he was, like you. I'm sure I watched his movies and I was like, oh, that guy's a badass. But then, like the older I get, I get it. Like from a storytelling perspective, it's not good because you don't ever really feel like he's in danger because he always, easily wipes the floors of, with whoever he's fighting at the end. Like, I remember you mentioned Under Siege 2.
Yeah.
So the villain in Under Siege 2 at the very end gets in I don't know if you remember, he gets in that knife fight with him in like the kitchen of that train. And he makes this guy who's supposed to be like this badass Green Beret look like basically it looked like it was a trained fighter fighting a toddler. That's how bad he made this guy look. And you're like, all right, so why didn't you just go do that from the start? Why did I just watch this for 2 hours just to watch you beat the piss out of that guy in like 5 seconds, and then watch the thing fly off the cliff? It just, I don't know. I want a little bit more to chew on than that, I guess.
Yeah. It's there needs to be like a push and pull, there needs to be tension. And to your point, there's a lot of like cool fight scenes in this movie, but never really any tension, I would say.
No, and that's I guess to me that's the bad thing about it. Like even the scene where he's like going around town trying to like get information from people, and those guys pull up in that convertible and get out. One guy's got a gun, one guy's got a bat, one guy's got a fucking machete. At no point,
yes.
At no point in this fight does he seem like he is the least bit afraid of these guys.
No.
He really quickly disarms and takes the machete from one guy and hacks one dude's hand off. Which I want to get to this. I want to point out something.
Yeah.
So he hacks one dude's hand off.
Okay.
And then I can't remember exactly how, but he ends up killing the other two. And then chasing the one guy down the street. For what is kind of I don't want to say a long chase scene on foot, but not a short one. I mean, like he runs for a little bit. But I do want to point out how weird Steven Seagal looks running.
I don't know if you read. It's funny you bring that up because I was doing some research, and I was if I can find them, I always like to read like old like newspaper reviews of these movies. And there's one that's from the New York Times, and let me see if I can find it. The last paragraph of it, and I'll just this is a good description, I think. It says, quote, Mr. Seagal is tall, 6 feet 4 inches, but not terribly charismatic on screen. Even when he walks, he's a still photograph. He looks like a seasoned 40-ish runner-up in a contest for a job as an Armani model. So I like the still photograph. That's a good descriptor, I think.
That's fair.
But yeah, very strange.
That's fair, and I think that really is a good descriptive about how he looks in every movie for the rest of his career. He looks like a still photograph that's going through an action movie. Like if you took like a photograph of him and made like a puppet, remember like the old puppets that had like the arms that were made out of pins and hands. So like, you took that. You put those on him, and you just had a picture of him looking as like stoic as possible, and like then just march the puppet through the movie. That's exactly.
Yeah, I mean, let's pitch him on it. Let's write it for him, and he can produce it, and we can make a couple bucks.
Yeah, man.
I do want to mention about the fight scene that you brought up. It's got one of my favorite lines in the movie where, the guy with the gun comes out of the car. And there's like a quick shot of Nico, of Seagal. And then the guy says, hey, I'm not going to shoot you. These guys are going to beat you to death. It's like such a weird line. It's like, I have a gun, but I'm not going to shoot you. These guys are going to beat you to death.
Well, I mean, I get it. It sounds like a menacing line until like the action commences and you realize like, no, they're not going to beat him to death.
No, they're not. They're not.
And we've talked about this in other movies, I think, but this movie commits one of those cardinal sins of like a fight scene that I always hate. And movies are getting better at it, where they don't do this as much. But back in the 80s and 90s, it was really a big deal where a guy would have multiple opponents, and he'd still end up taking them on one at a time, which doesn't make any sense. Like if 4 guys get up.
It's not how a fight in real life would happen.
No. Like if I was to do with a machete, I'd have walked up and taken a swing, and when I missed, the guy with the bat better have cracked him. Like that's the way that shit works in real life. Like he would have had to be like Superman to avoid not getting hit there, but like he doesn't even break a sweat. Mm-hmm. Like because everything is so seamless, and like they try to shoot it in a way where it looks like the guys are coming at him quickly, but you could tell by the fact that he's never having to deal with more than one of them at a time that it's not the way it is.
Yeah,
like that's one thing again that they're doing better in modern movies. Like I don't know if you've seen any of the Jack Reacher movies, the Tom Cruise movies.
I have not. No,
I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, but he does when he does like a fight scene, he does it pretty well. And they don't go too crazy over the top. And in the Jack Reacher movie, when there's fight scenes, he's legitimately fighting two guys at a time. There's not one guy standing there waiting till he hits the one dude to come in. They're both trying to hit him at the exact same time. And it looks much more real and believable. And that's something that, new fight choreography does really well, that old movies from the 80s, 90s, 70s, and going further back just didn't have a comprehension of. Which I want to say is probably why I got my ass beat in at least one schoolyard fight, because I expected everybody to make a turn.
Yeah. There are rules, guys. There are rules. Come on.
Stand in line. I'll get to you in a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you bring up the choreography, because I do wonder if a degree of that is because Steven Seagal's background was as a fight coordinator before he started acting in movies, and I would assume that he probably coordinated the fights on this movie as well. Maybe not his later movies, but if you're coordinating fights for yourself versus for another actor, especially if you're a little bit full of yourself, which we all know he is, that could lead to situations such as four guys, machete, baseball bat, gun. To your point, a seamless, in Mortal Kombat parlance, a flawless victory.
Right, exactly. I don't know, man. Again, I would like to say that I went at this movie not being biased, but I can't legitimately say that. I went at this movie knowing how I feel about Steven Seagal as a person, and really kind of just tried to pick this movie apart.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But you know what, though? I mean, I think this is not one of those movies that holds up. I will give this movie this, though. We have done movies already in the past that had plot lines that were so thin, they just didn't make any sense. Like Bloodsport. Super thin plot.
Bloodsport.
Just
Cobra,
another one. Yeah, that's the last one we did. Horribly thin plot. This movie feels like it's got the opposite problem. It's got too much shit.
It's got too much plot.
It's got too much stuff going on, which is really weird for an 80s action movie to have too much shit to sift through. But it's got so much going on that I don't understand why things happened in the plot. Like, okay, so he's got all the CIA stuff going on, and then he's in New York as a New York cop. How did they get hooked up with the guy, the CIA guy? How did that happen? How did he start selling explosives to the Italian mob? Like, it's there, it's a plot element, but they don't explain like how it got there. So feels like it feels like a soup that they were just like, oh, well, fuck it, throw a bag of peas in it.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because I was to your point, not really being super familiar with this movie or its plot. I was honestly kind of having a hard time following it in certain parts, because there was so much going on. But then, of course, and they must have known this, and this is probably why they had it in the movie. You get that scene with Nico and Fox on the roof, when Fox catches Nico doing recon, and Nico just spends like 5 minutes explaining the entire plot of the movie, like very expository language. He's like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and this is why this happened. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you for explaining that to me, because I usually don't feel like I need things explained to me, but in this case, I kind of appreciated it a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, I did too, but still, like, it still feels like there's a lot of like fluff that really didn't need to be there, that doesn't help the plot along. It doesn't help the story. It's just there for the sake of having it there. Like, I give you a really good example of this in a movie that it's just hysterical. Did you ever see The Island of Dr. Moreau?
No.
Okay. So we could get into a podcast about that movie, because that movie is batshit crazy, and the story behind the movie itself is even crazier than the movie itself. But, like, there's a little guy in the movie. I don't really know what you call him. He's like this little Indian guy. He's a dwarf. And is that PC? Can I use dwarf? Is that still
I think it's little people, but I don't know. Little people, I think is okay.
I know that the M word is not cool anymore, but like I've never heard anybody bitch.
No.
So I'm not okay. Anyways, so he looks exactly like Dr. Moreau. He serves no purpose in the movie, but he's in a lot of shots. I didn't know this until later when I was watching the documentary on the movie. The only reason he's in there is because Marlon Brando was fascinated with the guy and demanded he have more scenes. You get these weird scenes where he's just like, they literally wrote scenes that don't make any sense just to give him something to do. Like there's this weird random scene where like you see him playing piano, right? And then you hear, they pan out and you see that, no, he's playing piano, yes, but he's playing a miniature piano that is setting on top of a larger piano that Marlon Brando makes no sense.
Oh, I love that.
Has no purpose in the movie, but they wrote it because Brando demanded it. And this kind of like, I don't think this movie was like that, but I kind of feel like whoever was writing the movie was like, nope, we got to have this part in there. And somebody was like, yeah, but Tom, it really doesn't make any sense. Fuck you, Brad. It's going to stay in the movie or you're fucking fired. So it's in the
movie. I mean, it's funny you say that because like most of his movies, Steven Seagal is credited as
one of the writers.
One of the writers. Story by. I believe it was him and the director, who is Andrew Davis, is the director, and yes, they're the two credited story writers of this movie above the law. So. There you go.
One thing I will point out that I did like about this movie is I thought the soundtrack and score behind it were pretty good. It was very fitting for the 1988 New York-based action movie. I thought it fit really well.
Well, it took place in Chicago.
Was it Chicago?
Sorry to correct you.
You're right.
Chicago.
It was Chicago. I remember it was the L train. You're right. My bad. Sorry, Chicago. Didn't mean to confuse you with New York and vice versa. I felt like it sounded and reminded me a lot of the soundtrack that kind of went behind Lethal Weapon. I don't know if maybe they were cueing off of the movie or if it was the same team or maybe part of the writers. But I did like that. I thought it fit the movie well. It definitely was better than like the soundtrack behind Cobra, for instance. Like it made more sense.
Sure.
So
yeah,
if I had to give it props on that, I think the production value of the movie was pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree. It's you bring up the L. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Is that particular death scene? We're jumping around here, but the scene towards the end when Zagon and his goons have Nico, which we didn't mention this, but Nico's last name is Toscani. Not Tuscany. Toscani. Toscani. He's not from Tuscany. He just sounds like he is, probably. He's Sicilian. That's established. But I liked the scene so much that I took pictures of it when I was watching it today. Just because of the way. So basically, to set it up, it's Salvano, right? That's on the back on the trunk of the car, right?
Right.
Salvano. Right. So Salvano is like one of the like CIA drug runners, like, liaisons, whatever. Because basically, the primary plot of this movie is that, going back to what was happening in Vietnam, is that there's like this like secret sector of CIA agents who are running drugs, and Nico's got to get to the bottom of it because he's a good guy. He's a good family man, a good Catholic boy. And he thinks it's wrong. And Salvano is one of these guys. So Salvano ends up on the back of this car that Nico is driving, on the trunk. And what does Nico do? He hits reverse, drives full speed reverse, out of this parking garage, through a wall. Half the car flies out of the wall. We see a very nice shot of this car halfway out of this parking garage. And we see what is supposed to be a man falling off the back of the trunk, but what we see instead is it's something like this. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of blurry. It's dark in here, but you know, it's like a shot of what's very obviously like a dummy with a mullet wig on in a suit, standing straight up on top of this trunk before he falls onto the L tracks and is electrocuted to death. I should add, as just like a little cherry on top. Chef's kiss, perfect.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at that and just see if I can see that picture, because I think I watched it and it happened so quickly I didn't catch it, and I may have looked down or looked away or something. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but I have to go back and check that out. That's interesting, but it makes sense. I mean, what were they gonna do? You know, they're not gonna. That's one of those stunts that's really, really difficult and hard to pull off. Stuntman, for sure.
Sure, of course.
You know, and who knows? Maybe the city of Chicago was like, "Yeah, there's absolutely no fucking way we're gonna let you do that." So they had to get inventive. I mean, it happened.
Yeah, I just texted you the pictures, by the way, so you can take a look at them on your end.
Okay.
But
oh yeah, you're right.
Just yeah.
Oh wow,
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I think
the one that's even more telling is the one where he's like, it looks like he's about to he's probably supposed to be hanging off right there, like as the car first comes through. But he's like, his legs are sticking straight back out, like stiff as a board.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the physics just don't add up here. You know, it's just.
Again, I mean,
I love it. I loved it so much.
The city of Chicago was like, yeah, no, absolutely not.
not only that, but you can't even have a realistic dummy, like something made of like, you know, some kind of like rubbery substance that will crumple like a human body would. You know what we're giving you? We're giving you a fucking mannequin from the Macy's downtown, and that's what you're getting. And you can glue a mullet onto the top, put it in a suit, and throw it off the parking garage, and that's what we're doing. So I'm sorry, but you know, my deep dish pizza's getting cold. The Bears game's about to come on. I've got a can of Old Style in my hand, and I gotta go. I don't have time for this shit anymore. Speaking of Chicago, though, one thing I would like to point out about this movie being set in Chicago, and I didn't know this, but realizing it after the fact makes a lot of sense. And this is one thing that I also liked about the movie, where I guess Andrew Davis, the director, has a reputation for casting non-actors in acting roles. Because he feels it's more realistic. And a lot of the Chicago police that were around Nico and Jax were basically not actors, just like Chicago cops. They had the accents. A lot of great Chicago accents in this movie, I gotta say. Thumbs up to that. And I thought it added, you know, in a completely ridiculous movie, I thought it added a nice dose of grounded reality. So kudos to them for that.
Oh, I'll agree with that. Again, you know, this movie's got a lot of good points, but the bad points of the movie are just really hard to gloss over. At least for me. I don't know. It was enjoyable to watch, and I think if I'd have been like maybe 2 or 3 more beers deep, I might have had a little bit more fun.
Yeah, I mean, I went into it with no expectations. I kind of knew it would be silly and dumb, and I don't like Steven Seagal as a person. And I talked about, you know, him, and I brought up Jax a second ago. We haven't talked about her yet, but I do wonder if the reason that I found Steven Seagal as Nico so surprisingly affable and charismatic was because he was opposite Pam Grier, who is just the best, and probably makes everybody around her better as an actress.
That's a good point. Hold that thought 1 second. Take a little brief break, and we'll come back to that.
Let's take a break.
All right, awesome.
All right, we're back. Welcome back to Going Commando. This is episode number 7, lucky number 7. We're talking about Above the Law, the 1988 debut of Steven Seagal's storied film career. And we were just getting into what I found interesting, which was that I found Seagal surprisingly affable and charismatic and a little funny at times in this movie. And, you know, knowing what I know about Seagal and, you know, kind of seeing how he interacted with other characters in the movie, I kind of wonder if having Jax as his partner was a big reason why. Jax played by Pam Grier, because she's the best. You know, she was a big action star in the 70s. And, you know, like I said, can probably make just about anybody look good.
Yeah, I'll second that. She's one of the best parts of this movie, I think. Her character and the back and forth that she has with Seagal make the movie palatable, for sure. You know, like you said, Pam Grier is, well, I mean, for lack of a better term, Pam Grier is a legend.
Absolutely.
I mean, all the action movies she was in back in the 70s. Yeah, Pam Grier is awesome. She's really amazing. It's a shame. I mean, I know she's older now. She's got to be probably real close to her 70s, if not in her 70s.
Yeah.
It's a shame you don't really see her in very much anymore or anything at all. Because I think she's...
Yeah, it is.
I think she'd be a really good addition to any type of movie in some kind of role. And I think really that she was the perfect casting choice for that role. I can't think of anybody else you could have put in that role to make Steven Seagal look a little bit more human. Funny enough, you mentioned so I was really I found it odd, and I totally forgot this. And I guess the reason why is because she doesn't really say much. I totally forgot that Sharon Stone played his wife in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
she doesn't have a ton to do in this one.
No,
at all.
She really doesn't. And I mean, granted, this was kind of before her big explosion in like the early 90s. But I look back at her filmography, she still had quite a bit under her belt at that point. And movies with a lot more dialogue, you know, where she was a big part. And in this movie, she just is really kind of relegated to like a piece of furniture for the most part.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It
seems like a waste, honestly.
It does. I mean, you know, that it's weird. Like in like the 80s, they might have a really pretty actress in a role, and she might not say a whole lot, but they would definitely use her in some form, like, you know, make her a very sympathetic wife or girlfriend or something. And they just really kind of wasted Sharon Stone in this movie. Like, her only screen presence was really to be Steven Seagal's pretty wife and to be worried all the time.
Yeah, she's basically there to establish this like wooden guy who's like also like a crazy fucking cop. He's like as like a family man, and we didn't really get into this, but you know, like in a vacuum, Nico Toscani is like the worst fucking cop I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he's totally corrupt. He's doing illegal wiretaps all over the place, beating people up left and right for no reason.
Yeah,
it's you know, and he you know, he does get suspended for it like at one point in the movie, but not before. There's like a lot of bloodshed after, and a lot of people's phones are tapped and that type of shit. So, you know, he's good at the martial arts, but bad at the policing.
Well, you know, you got to remember too, this movie it came out in 1988, and in 1988, Reagan was real heavy into his war on drugs, and you know, you have a guy who's breaking the law, but he's doing it for the right reason. He's trying to get drugs off the streets. So it was seen as, you know, it's a very cavalier thing to do in a lot of ways, but it also is seen as like the right thing to do. He's a guy who's taken the law into his own hands, but for the right reasons. And I'm sure that's the way it come across in 1988 when people saw it in the theater. They were like, he's doing what he's got to do to clean up. You know.
Totally. But yeah, I mean,
I dare say it's probably a lot more tame than some of the stuff that happened in real life back in the 80s and 90s with a lot of police precincts.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen
Yeah, you're probably right.
There's a really cool documentary, and I think you can watch it on YouTube. God, what is it called? It's about the most corrupt precinct in New York City in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
Hold on. The 7-5. Come out in like 2014.
The 7-5.
The 7-5. You should watch it because they're like, this is real, and they're like, these cops were straight up corrupt, not like wiretapping people to get arrests. Like we're talking like moving drugs for people and stuff. But you listen to it,
Right.
and you're like, okay, so this is crazier than anything I ever saw in a movie. Around the same time frame. Like if you look at cops and movies, just watch it, check it out. It's a little over an hour, and tell me what you think, because I think you might find it super interesting.
Yeah, I will. We we mentioned, I mean, we kind of mentioned Sharon Stone's like less than stellar role in this movie, and her just kind of, I mean she's like second billed in the movie too, which is weird. As far as like random people showing up in this movie, I think one of my favorite random guys that showed up in this movie was when Nico and Neely go to the warehouse to look for the C4, and the clerk is there, and it's the guy who plays the gangster in the fake movie Inside Home Alone that Kevin McAllister is watching. I recognize his voice right away.
Was it really?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know the actor's name, but second I heard him speak, I was like, oh shit, that's he's like, I'm gonna butcher the line, but he's like, get your yellow keister or whatever it is, like, and he's like, I'm gonna count to 10. 1, 2,
10.
and then he just starts shooting. Yeah, it was that guy.
Who is it?
It's me, Snakes. I got the stuff.
Leave it on the doorstep and get the hell out of here.
All right, Johnny. But what about my money?
What money?
AC said you had some dough for me.
That a fact. How much do I owe you?
AC said 10%.
Too bad AC ain't in charge no more.
What do you mean?
He's upstairs taking a bath. He'll call you when he gets out. Hey, I tell you what I'm going to give you, Snakes. I'm going to give you to the count of 10 to get your ugly, yellow, no-good keister off my property before I pump your guts full of lead.
All right, Johnny, I'm sorry. I'm going.
1, 2, 10. Keep the change, you filthy animal.
So,
wow.
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't even notice that. That's a good catch. Good catch. Yeah, it's weird. Like 80s movies, like going back and looking at them now, are so strange. Sometimes you see people pop up and you're like, oh, it's that fucking dude from
It's that guy.
It's that guy.
Yeah.
From whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, like back then they were like a nobody, and now they're like a really big star. So it's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we'll talk more about this next time we do a movie of him, but I think I mentioned before when we did Commando, Bill Paxton is in there as like a radio operator. He's legit.
Yeah.
He's legit on screen for maybe 30 seconds.
Yep.
And at the time, like, nobody probably thought anything of it. They were like, oh yeah, give this kid a role for a few minutes and let him do something. And he turned into like, an A-list actor in some sense.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really noticed Bill Paxton until Aliens, right? That was probably like the first. I know that wasn't the first movie he was in, but that was the first movie where he really got to, have a somewhat substantial part.
Yeah, definitely the first big Hollywood movie. I don't know if that come out before or after. I'd have to look it up. But he did Near Dark with Lance Hendrickson and I can't remember that other guy's name. But that was a horror movie, and that was pretty big, and he had a really substantial part in that.
Okay.
But I don't know what year that came out. That would have been 86 or 87. I think Aliens come out in like 88. I don't know.
I think Aliens was 86, right?
You know what? I'm going to IMDb it because I don't know.
All right. You do that.
Oh, you're right, 86.
But
Look at you.
yeah, I don't know why I have such a. You know why I think I have such a encyclopedic knowledge of years that movies have come out? I think it's because I read the TV guide in the newspaper like every fucking day to see what movies were coming on, and I would like never really watch any of them. I really just wanted to see if like Ghostbusters was coming on for the most part, or like something that I already seen that I liked. But yeah, I just remember shit like that. I can't remember like stuff that I did last week, but I can remember that Aliens came out in 1986. I meant to bring this up last week too. Speaking of when we were talking about Cobra, but I very distinctly remember never really watching Cobra, only because like the movie listings, they had like little star ratings next to them, and Cobra only had 1 star next to it every time it was on TV, and it was on TV a lot. And I was like, I don't have time for that. I'm like 12. Like, why would I watch a 1-star movie? You know? So
yeah,
there it is.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think I probably watched it because, again, it was probably on TBS and I didn't pay any attention to it. I remember when I was a kid and we first got cable, we had like the very, very basic cable. So I want to say we had like 22 channels or something like that. I mean, it was ridiculous. So we fortunately had like TNT and TBS and stuff. So at least there was some movies on there. But I think that's, one of the reasons like I watched a lot of these movies that I probably wouldn't have watched if I'd had better cable. It's just because there was nothing else on.
Sure.
So it's like, all right, I'll watch Roadhouse for the 40th time this month.
Still cool when he rips the guy's throat out. Doesn't get old, man.
It doesn't get old. I kind of wonder. I'm going to have to check and see. I don't know if that's. I mean, it's possible. I'm sure to do. But man, I don't know. Putting your fingers in some, maybe. I don't know. The more like the older I get now that I have like a medical background, like I watch stuff and I'm like, that's not fucking possible. You couldn't do that.
You can't suspend your disbelief. Yeah,
I can't anymore. Like it's actually ruined stuff for me. Like I watch stuff now and if like there's a medical scene in a movie, I just pick it the fuck apart. I'm like, that's not how we do that. That's such bullshit. How are you giving him any drugs? You don't even have an IV line in. What? Fuck.
Speaking of like basic TV shows and suspension of disbelief, I don't know if you ever saw this, but did you ever see the live episode of ER that they did?
I don't know if I ever saw it, but I remember it. I remember hearing about it. I don't think I actually saw it.
That was the moment for me where I was like, oh, this is stupid. Why am I watching this? There's like it's kind of a blurry memory, but there's one scene in particular where I think they're like trying to do something on like a small child, like a baby or like an infant, and like the baby like projectile vomits, but it's not like a spray, right? It's like a straight stream, like it's coming out of a water hose. And I'm like, oh, come on. This is so fake. I hate this. Couldn't they get a real baby in there? I know it's live, but I mean, what are we doing here? Like, what am I doing here?
Well, the thing is...
So that's what that made me think of.
Like, I'm not a special effects guy, but like, I feel like from a practical standpoint of it, like, they could have made it look real if they had just like, instead of having it come out of a hose, so it like arced like it was coming out of a hose, like have it come out of some kind of thing like with a diffuser, so it like literally sprays, like and like... fans. Like that would have been believable. And I know they could do that because I remember like horror movies back in the 70s and 80s where like people would throw up and it would fan out. Like you remember The Exorcist? I'm sure you saw The Exorcist.
Of course.
Like Linda Blair obviously wasn't like projectile vomiting that pea soup everywhere. I saw how they did it. They had like 2 tubes that came up her like cheek and like it had a little spray nozzle in her mouth and they just covered it in makeup.
Yeah.
So it come out of like 4 little holes, I think, that like crossed to give it this like spray, like fanning effect. But like she'd literally like open her mouth and they'd force that out with like an air compressor, and it was like, and it like sprayed everywhere. Like that was in the 70s, and you're telling me ER couldn't figure that out in the mid 90s? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. And and this is like a popular TV show that like 30 million people watch every week. On a network, a broadcast network. Presumably they have the budget for it.
Oh yeah, of course.
So
I will say
instead I got to see I got to see Gloria Rubin try to keep a straight face while this like prosthetic baby like water hoses fake vomit in her vicinity. It's like, this sucks. I hate this.
I will say this though, my hat's off to them for the sheer balls to do a live episode of TV like that.
Yeah.
Like Saturday Night Live is one thing; it's a comedy show, and a lot of times the skits where people can't hold their shit together and like they laugh or like something happens, those are the best skits. But ER is supposed to be a very serious show. So to do a show like that that's supposed to be so serious and dramatic, and to do it live, like just rolling off the cuff like that takes guts.
Yeah.
It really does take guts.
It does. I would be interested to watch that again because I haven't seen it in probably more than 20 years.
Oh, ER's been off for 20 years, I think.
But see what it looks like nowadays compared to what my memory of it is.
See how well it holds up.
But just that episode, I wouldn't like, start watching ER from the beginning and like watch every episode. There's too many episodes. It's too daunting. There are other TV shows that are better that I haven't seen that I would rather watch. So
for that matter, there's TV shows that I've watched every episode that I would rather rewatch than that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's,
like
the
X-Files, for instance.
The X-Files, yep. It's it's like getting to be about that time, I think, where it's time for an X-Files rewatch. I think it's been about maybe 3 years. So,
I need
maybe I'll wait a few more years. I don't know.
Her and I need to sit down and rewatch it. Like, I've not sit down and like flat out like binge watched a season or like the whole series probably ever, but I've watched like seasons or two and then taken a little break and come back and picked up where I left off. But even now, some nights like when I come home, like we get out and we're busy doing a bunch of junk and we eat late, and she's like, "What do you want to put on a watch?" I'm like, "I'm just going to put on an episode of the X-Files." It's like it's like comfort food, It's like it's like
absolutely
like mashed potatoes and gravy. You know what it's like. You know what it tastes like, and it's always delicious.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's one of the best shows ever, and for a network show to do what they did and like be as weird as they were and as interesting as they were, like there's like I could talk about the X-Files forever, but this is not an X-Files podcast, but maybe it should be now. I don't know.
Maybe
I'm sure it's already been done.
Maybe we should do an episode on the X-Files. Maybe that's a good thing we could do on Patreon. We could because we've been talking about Patreon stuff. Maybe we could go back and rewatch and examine some X-Files episodes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Or we could do the X-Files movie on a regular episode at some point.
Yeah.
The first movie. So we'll talk about it. But why don't we wrap this one up? Let's put a bow on this one.
Yeah, I agree.
And give Above the Law our fists rating. What do you think? How many fists?
I'm going to give it a 2 fist.
Okay.
It's a 2-fister. It's not. I'm not. I think I gave Cobra a 1 fist. I don't think eventually one of these days we're going to give like the dreaded half a fist or no fist.
Quarter fist. One finger out of the fist.
Yeah, like pinky finger. It's got a pinky.
This one's like a thumb, maybe. No, go ahead.
Yeah. It was better than Cobra. I'll give it that. Like, Cobra, I think right now is so far our low benchmark. And this movie, as bad as I kind of felt like it was, and as much as I really dislike Steven Seagal, I can't even put this movie below Cobra because I think Cobra was just that bad. But I think the production value of this movie was good. The plot wasn't lacking in substance. There was a lot to chew on. In fact, probably too much.
Yes.
The action scenes, like the fight scenes, even though they were a little unbelievable, they weren't so over the top like a lot of action movies. The disbelief in these really comes from the fact that you had to really believe that like he's fighting 4 guys and only one of them at a time is going to fight him. So that's kind of where the disbelief of that comes from, which all action movies from that time frame really kind of fall into that. So all that being said, I'll definitely give it a solid 2 fist. I'd be hard pressed, sans having a gun put to my head to actually give it any more than that, though.
Yeah, that's fair. I think 2 was is a good rating, and I agree. I'm going to give it 2 fists as well. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I'll say that. So credit where it's due. Steven Seagal is who he is, but this movie's like entertaining enough. I think they put enough people around him who are better actors than he is to kind of prop him up and set him up for success. To where you have this movie that's like pretty entertaining, but I will say I agree that too much to chew on. This is like putting the whole pack of bubble gum in your mouth and trying to chew it at the same time. It's too much plot. I didn't need like all the church stuff. Could have lost that. There's like other things, but like lots of this movie could have been cut out, and it would have been, I think, better.
Agreed. I mean, you
and it's not even a long movie. I think it's like an hour 40, which is crazy.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's that long. It's really short. I was really surprised of how short it actually was. Well, no, it might have been an hour and 40. I think Cobra was a little under an hour and a half, which is even shorter. Yeah. But then again, I mean, that movie really could have used to have been like 60 minutes, in all honesty. But
yeah, it could have been. It could have been an episode of The X-Files with Cobra as the antagonist.
And then at the very end, Mulder...
Give me an hour.
At the very end, Mulder and Scully throw him off a bridge.
yeah, exactly.
You're right. There's too much. And I feel like movies now... That's one thing that most action movies now, at least most good action movies now, do a really good job of. If they're going to give you more plot, they give it to you in an easily digested format. Like John Wick. John Wick is a perfect example of them giving you just enough plot to buy in and enjoy the movie, and they give it to you in a way like, you see at the very beginning of the movie, you see his wife die. There's the narration where he's reading the note and he gets the puppy. Then there's the build up, very short, like 5 minutes or so, of him with the puppy, like bonding with the puppy, before it gets into like, douchebags coming in and killing the puppy and stealing his car and beating his ass. So it's really concise and to the point, and there's enough there to like invest you, but not too much to make you go, "What is going on here? This doesn't make any sense." And they do a really good job.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say to your point. I think movies like John Wick are smart in that way, in how concise they are, because they trust the audience to fill in the blanks. They don't want to insult the audience's intelligence, and like we can see 5 minutes of John Wick at the beginning of this movie and like get the emotional aspect and understand the emotional aspect and his motivations and what they are, like, right away. And there's no confusion whatsoever.
Right.
So I appreciate that. I appreciate it when movies don't try to like spell it out for me in that way,
and
because there's no need for it.
Right. And then when they're going to get into more complicated plots, movies that do it really well will wait and see if they get a sequel before they overwhelm you, which is what a good example to point to John Wick. They don't give you any more about his world. They leave you wondering what's going on there until the second movie, where they give you a little bit more. But it's a slice that's small enough that you can easily digest it and not leaving you feeling bloated and confused. They give you that movie, and then in the third one, just a little bit more. But it's enough.
A little bit more. Yep.
Enough, again, not to leave you feeling bloated and confused and like, what the fuck did I just watch? It's just enough. But then you put all the pieces of that pie together that you've eaten so far, and you're like, oh, this is a really thick, full story. And you get a really good idea of the world that he lives in. But you didn't get it all so quickly that it makes you sick.
Yeah.
So, I think movies like really need to take a cue from that and go, okay, we can build a really cohesive movie. That's how movies really get a sequel, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Giving you a good story, but making it easy to watch and enjoy. And then, making all the other aspects, the action, the pacing, and everything very easy to digest. That's what helps get a movie a sequel. Like, look at Die Hard. We talked about Die Hard a couple weeks ago. When Die Hard was written and put into production, the studio had so little faith in it, they didn't even put Bruce Willis on the posters that went to the theaters. It was just a picture of the fucking building.
Right.
And in the second week, after it exploded, they released all these crazy. I think they actually sent out posters that you were like, it was like just Bruce Willis. They were supposed to like tape it over the other poster. They're like, oh, okay, we fucked.
Yeah.
Send a picture of Bruce Willis to tape over top of it. So, but they did a really good job of building a movie, and it just happened to work out. You know, and movies really need to take cues from movies that did that really good in the past and figure out how they could take their plot and wrap it up in a neat bow like that.
Yeah. I totally agree. And Steven Seagal could stand to learn from that. And you know, he's still out there, and he's still doing it. And I want to do something really quickly before we go.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to quiz you.
Okay.
Very quickly.
Okay.
So I have 5 movie titles in front of me, Steven Seagal movies, and I'm going to read them out, and I'll read them nice and slow so that everybody following along at home can play along. And I want you to tell me which one is not real. Are you ready?
Well, this might be hard because I quit watching him a long time ago, but I'll try.
That's okay. It's okay. So here are the 5 movies. Against the Dark, Born to Raise Hell, The Asian Connection, Pistol Whipped, and China Salesman. Which one is fake?
What was the first one again?
And don't look it up. Don't fucking cheat.
I'm not cheating. What was the first one again?
I already forgot. I'm just reading them off Wikipedia. It doesn't matter. I'll cut this part out. Anyway, I was trying to get you. They're actually all real. That's the joke.
Are they really?
Yes. They're all real.
I would have probably said the China Salesman, but wow.
Oh no, it's real. If Wikipedia is to be believed, and why not?
I would venture to say, again, talking about Steven Seagal and how all of his movies are basically the same thing. I'd venture to say, and maybe you could do this on your own time. Just read the plot of all those movies. You don't have to watch them, for God's sakes. Don't do that. But just read the plot. He is a former Special Forces guy.
Yep.
So badass that, like, when they have to train other Special Forces guys, they call him in to do it. And he's going up against somebody who's corrupt or selling drugs. One of those two, or maybe both. And he's going to come out, he's going to win, and he's going to look like the good guy, to the point of almost disgusting, like old school 80s, like Go America good guy. Almost all of those.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, that's his brand. He's still doing it. As my mom would say, bless his heart. And with that, I think we should say goodnight. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another new episode. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media, Going Commando Pod on Instagram and Twitter, goingcommandopod@gmail.com. And we will talk to you some other time. Bye.
Good night, folks.